I was 17 years old, I got into robotics because I was missing something from my designs because they were like analog, they were not doing anything. And I saw that the robots had the brain and they had the heartbeat, and I wanted that from the robots.
Where are your origins? Where has Anouk Wipprecht been born to do this kind of thing you are doing today?
Yeah, that's a really small place called Beemster in the Netherlands.
Have your parents been in technical environment?
Yeah, my dad, he got a computer pretty early on. I was, I think, 6 years old. He had an Olivetti, but I think my real fascination came with when I started to explore more with robotics. So I myself come from fashion, from my study, and I got really good at constructing garments, especially women's wear. And when I was 17 years old, I got into robotics because I was missing something from my designs because they were like analog, they were not doing anything. And I saw that the robots had the brain and they had the heartbeat, and I wanted that from the robot. So I started to work with computers, and that was first like really big computers on the back, like a backpack, you know. So it looked all nice from the front, but you turned around and rah, you know, it was a lot of stuff on the back. That was like the beginning of 2000s. So like the technology was really big. It was like big computers, and then halfway 2000s there were things coming in, smaller like computer boards and smaller electronics. So also something called Arduino, created in Italy. It's like a small computer board. So I started to use that, and then my systems were, instead of really big, they became really small, sort of, you know. I think I really came from the notion of like, okay, if we create fashion, I think it should move with us, it should react to us, it should, and I had all of these ideas, and other people had other ideas. They just had like, I want to make a dress and it needs to look pretty. But for me it was like, pretty was not enough, you know. I wanted something more, something more like intelligence in there or something, you know. So I think I had all these like, strange ideas in the beginning of 2000s, and then at one point it catched up because technology became more sensoric, it became more embedded and all of that stuff, you know. My first milestone was basically my first collection that I had that was really reacting. It was called Fragilis. It was fabrics that were moving and like lightening up. The first bigger one that people really liked was a design called Pseudomorphs, and that was a design with ink, and the ink was dripping on dresses and it was coloring the dresses, you know. So the dresses were like sort of in a wool filled, and the ink was dripping on it and it was like absorbing it, and that was for ICEA. And I think that went around, it went like viral, that that weird thing was happening, you know, and people I think really liked it. And I got a lot of calls, and also calls from like America, for example, you know, to do things with maybe celebrities, and people saw it on the red carpet and they saw it as a fashion line. And I think it opened up a lot of this notion of that dialogue with fashion that goes beyond only creating fashion, but actually embedding fashion with technology, you know. And I think a lot of people like that. I moved to LA in 2012. I had like some jobs before, but I was always in between 2009 I was in Sweden. Between 2010 and 12 I was in Vienna in Austria for 2 years. I curated an exhibition there, and I did some work from there. The exhibition was called Techno-Sensual at the Museumsquartier in Vienna. Yeah. And in 2012 I got asked to come to America for the Super Bowl, and they had the Black Eyed Peas was the halftime show, and they asked me to make a design for Fergie, for the singer. Yeah, it was definitely like a way bigger event than I could ever imagine, sort of, you know. So, but it got me to, in 2012, it got me to LA, and in LA, and any idea that you have was like possible, you know, and it still is, you know, and that opened my in where the Netherlands and Europe we think about things theoretically and really underbuilt, and in LA it was like everything was possible. So that was a really interesting time for me. So I actually moved to LA because of that in in 2012 for a while. For me, fashion tech is really where art and science and fashion and technology gets combined, sort of, and by that it creates this field where you can play around with anything around that notion.
Have you been engaged by universities?
Yes, yeah. My first big one was at Tsinghua University, the technical university in China. In Beijing. Yeah, I love teaching. So I work. I always do 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. 1/3 is working for the companies and the brands and whatever, how I can help. I either design, I do beta testing. I use their products. I create something and I give them feedback, or we work on a show, or So that's 1/3. 1/3 is for me myself creating my own designs. And then 1/3 is for me education. And also teaching other people, and especially girls and technology, getting more girls in technology, and also getting more children into electronics, because the children only know this as electronics, and that's not, you want to learn them hardware and working with that.
Tell a little bit about your production process.
Yeah, I use software, I use hardware. So the software is like Arduino, or some of the designs are Python, so the coding languages. Then the design is 2D and 3D design. So 2D is like Adobe, for example, software. 3D design is Fusion 360 or Maya or Blender. And then from the production kind of view is the sewing machine, the soldering iron, like a soldering thing, your circuits, the 3D printer, 3D printers I use a lot, and laser cutters, so any kind of machining. Sometimes for certain parts or prosthetics we use CNC milling. I use water jet before. So definitely you have your machines, you have your software, you have your hardware, your electronics, and that's a big part of like the studio. So what I have behind here is I'm in my home now, so I have a home studio. And then I have a studio further away as well with more space. But for me, it's important to have the home studio, because if I have an idea at dinner or in a night or in the evening, then I can always go here and I can just create it, sort of. So I also like the access to smaller machines. But then if I'm printing, so you can see here a new smoke dress laying there. It's a big piece. I cannot print that on my 3D printer. Here is a small one. So smaller things I would prototype here at home or in my studio, and then I send it off to like Shapeways or Materialize or like a 3D printing company, and they are having 3D printers that are called selective laser sintering, so SLS printing. So they also print full cars and all of that stuff, So then the pieces go to the surface and they print it out. And they ship it back to me, or I pick it up, and then the process is like sending it, painting it, embedding it with the electronics. Of course the sewing of like any part. Sometimes I have like a leather dress underneath it, and the 3D print on top. Programming it. And then, of course, also testing it. And then, of course, it goes to a showcase or to the client, or whatever it's created for almost.
Have some of your ideas gone in the wider fashion industry or being integrated?
There's a lot of interest, but it's always touching upon the topic to research it. I think there's a lot of like slight problems still with manufacturing. First of all, water. As you know, that
washing machine.
Electronics don't like water, as you know. So, but then it's cool because the industry comes in, and they. I had 3 years ago. I had a talk in Paris with the washing machine industry, or 4 years, longer time ago as well. And that was in Paris, and they were asking me advice about what to wash, how to wash, what do you want as an fashion tech designer? How do you want to wash your materials? And they're actually busy with washing machines to wash electronic textiles or smart textiles. So that's cool. So that's not with water, but that's like in different ways. So, but the problem is those machines are there, but then they're in the lab. So they're not out of the company because they're still in there. And we are like, we need them now. We want them, So, and that's hard for them because it's not something that they produce in the bigger companies, So then you almost need to have like a startup, maybe pushing that out because there is a need for it. Yet it stays in the laboratory. It stays in the company too long, like way too long. And as well with, if you're talking, the other problem is batteries, So batteries are big and bulky, they're square. The body wants flexible and round shapes, organic shapes. So like then also like the industry is figuring out how to do that, how to use solar, how to use movement, because we have of course the movement of our body. Now with COVID we can maybe not travel too much or be with each other, or and a lot of that went digital. So in where I had a hard time, because maybe some things I do by myself, sometimes I do collaborations. I was for the collaborations, like we cannot be in a physical space, we cannot work together. I just did a big project on EEG, on brain signals, and we could not be together because they were in Linz for Ars Electronica and I was here, but we did the whole project online by use of digital design, by use of digital software, and by all of that stuff. And I shipped the design off, and normally I go there to present it with them, and that's the only thing is I was missing all the fun, and they were like, I was on Zoom with them, and we had this whole presentation, which was great. It was the pangolin dress that works on the brain waves. It was really cool, but definitely I'm here behind my computer and I want to be there, so that's more a personal thing, sort of,
Explain a little bit this, probably new project with Linz.
It is an BCI, so it's a brain-computer interface, and it has 1024 channels. So they're all on the head, and they are 64 PCBs, and each PCB has like 16 channels, so that makes 1024 channels. And I think the cool thing about this dress is that in real life, on a really high resolution, we are measuring the brain waves, but the dress is also doing the data visualization of this, of sort of the scenario that we set of measuring the head region. And for us, it is what you can see in the dress. It's like different states we can see. So you can see a more hectic state in where the dress is moving the scales really quickly. The LEDs go really quickly. If our wearer goes into a more neutral state, it goes blue and almost pulsing kind of state. And then when you go into meditation, it all becomes like purplish, and it starts to glow, and the scales also react in a more wave-like pattern. So there's a lot of that connected from in a sort of an input-output situation. So there is both movement as also light, so LED, the behavior of the animation of the LEDs, and also the color of the LEDs. Yeah. Normally, I work for a lot of brands, but this is for Ars Electronica with a neurotechnology company, GTech, and a university. So the Johannes Kepler University in Linz. Okay. So it was really this art meets science meets fashion meets technology kind of collaboration between all of us, in where GTech is the neuroscience company, neurotechnology, and Johannes Kepler University came up to me with this idea of having the BCI with 1024 channels, sort of almost control a dress that we would create for this. So I think the project took not full-time working on it, but it was about half a year back and forth and all of that stuff. And then finally we had a dress and we had some time to demo it, like to test it, and then we presented it at Ars Electronica last September, like two weeks ago.
Is the dress just reacting to the brainwaves, or can you control it?
You can, as
the wearing person.
Yeah, you can control it by your mind. If you yourself go in a sort of more meditative state, you can for it to be more purple. If you go more in a hectic state, like some things that make your signals more hectic is like a really loud sound. It's calling your name. It reaches a sort of a focus state with your brain signal. So you can control it, but it's not from an outside force. It's from within. So inside. If you meditate, or if you're talking, or whatever is making your brain signal spike, basically, and that fluctuation we measure through the dress, through the BCI. Elon Musk, he came out with Neuralink. I don't know if you know that the brain interface, it's the implant version, sort of, So it was kind of cool because that was really the month of neuroscience, and we also came out with that thing, with that same project. So it was kind of cool because a lot of people were already known through Elon what brain signals were, what the BCI is, what the implications, what the possibilities are of that. So I think there's a lot at this moment, also triggered by that sort of, that is going on around EEG, because it's not that you focus on something and you know everything about the brain. It's not you build BCI and you know everything about the brain. it goes really in steps, the first time we connected to the brain so many years ago, we might have found out that we have fluctuations or through like scans and all of that stuff. But the more resolution you have and the more designated these BCIs become, the more we start to know about the brain. And I think that's a really interesting thing. The more this field, of course, gets pushed, the more we actually know about how our brain works and how our bodies work and all of that stuff. So I think that's really good. All the advantages that you have, the more people, like, of course, are busy with this and are focused on it.
Is this a long-term relationship between Audi and Anouk Wipprecht, or?
No, I worked with the Volkswagen Group.
Okay.
The Volkswagen Group has more. They have Lamborghini, they have Porsche, they have Audi, Volkswagen. So the first time I worked with them was for Volkswagen itself in 2012. Also the smoke dress. It was an 8-piece collection during the IAA, the big car show in Germany. And then at 2015, I worked with the Volkswagen Group again with Audi. So it was the inspiration from the car, and it was the A4. And I saw the headlights, and I saw some elements, the grille, that I wanted to use into the collection. So for me, that's a really statemental collection, because the girls were really like badass and out there, and also the colors. It was the first time that I used the car lock of the Audi. I went to the garage. We were spray painting them in the same way as the car, and that's for me a technique that I'm still using now to make things really nice and shiny. So a project comes out with Ubisoft, the game company from Paris. Comes out the 21st of November. It's for the game Just Dance, and it's a very colorful project, and it's on the theme of inclusivity. So having more people. We had a dancer who had below the arm amputee. Her name is Angelina Bruno, and I created a prosthetic arm for her.
Wow.
And also an outfit, and in the game she's the first prosthetic dancer that is sort of dancing in their game. So that's kind of a cool thing. It's very the song is The Weeknd, Blinding Lights. So it's this very sort of 8-bit or like this very neon 80s kind of vibe. So it was definitely different, because normally I use a lot of white, silver, black, maybe one color, non really color. So it was for me a little bit hard to work with colors, because they wanted all we needed to work with certain colors for the green screen studio as well. But that was definitely it was a fun project, a little bit manga-ish, but definitely the arm is like polygon. It's a polygon spike.
Wow, that's hybrid, that's biorobotics.
And prosthetic. So it's always something different here in my studio.